Everyone's talking about this new A Lange Sohne sports watch, so I am jumping on that hype train. Welcome back, Jack. I'm Adrian, and today we are talking about the new A Lange Sohne Odysseus watch. I made a very flippant comment in the previous video, a Q&A video around the watch being a failure, and lots of people saying, how can you comment on a watch that's not been released? Because I'm not going to say how, but I saw photographs of the watch before it was released, and I wasn't going to be the person who leaks those photographs. I haven't got hands on with this watch, and it is crazy trying to do a review of a watch or truly pass comment on a watch when you haven't held it in your hands. Testament to that is this piece, this Grand Seiko GMT, quartz GMT. I poo-pooed this watch massively when it was launched, and now I own one. It kind of just highlights how wrong you can be about a watch when you haven't held it in your hands. So what I'm going to be talking about is the aesthetics of the watch and the functionality, the facts of what the watch does, and kind of passing comment on that. I'll be referencing other people's content, and so I'll put a link in the description to all the people who I reference in this video. So today I'm going to put context to my flippant comments about it being a failure. It's not going to be a failure. It's going to be a massive sellout. This watch is of course joining the ranks of the Royal Oak, Nautilus, Overseas, and it's priced around that as well. It's priced at 28,000 euros, which is going to be around 24,000 pounds or roughly 30,000 US dollars. And it's a steel sports watch. No one can get a Nautilus. Very few people can get a Royal Oak, and no one's buying the Vacheron Constantin Overseas. And so this is another contender within that realm. So it's going to be massively popular. It's obviously going to be a well-made watch. It just comes down to the taste. And for me, there's a few things in this piece that have missed the mark. For me, it was a failure because it didn't meet what I wanted it to be. That being said, there are areas of this watch that I absolutely love. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Before we go any further, if you want to support the channel, just hit that subscribe button down there and jump over to barkandjack.shop if you want to check out our straps. We've got leather straps and we've got NATO straps as well. So this new watch is called the A Lange Sohne Odysseus. The family of the watch is Odysseus, just like Nautilus and Royal Oak. This first version of this range is a time, date and day version, and it is reference 363179. If we start off with the dial, it screams Lange. The dial is absolutely gorgeous. The blue, of course it's blue. They're kind of ticking all the boxes of what is hot right now. Steel sports watch with a relatively rugged look to it and with a blue dial. That's what everyone is asking for, and they've just ticked all of those commercial boxes. But they've killed it with this dial. The dial is absolutely gorgeous and it screams Lange. And one thing I guess I really like about this watch and the way they've executed this part is how they've kept so close to their design languages. It is quite obviously a Lange. You have these two huge date windows, which of course, if it's a true sports watch, then you don't necessarily need a date function, certainly not a day function. But for me, it doesn't take anything away from the dial. I think it's a really cool touch to the dial. It adds a huge amount of character, and as you can tell, I just love this dial. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the love starts to stop. If you just look at the case from a design point of view rather than any functionality, I actually think it's quite a good looking case. It has grown on me since the first kind of sighting of it. We have these two protruding sections just above and below the crown at 2 and 4 o'clock. These are to control the date functions, the day and date functions, which I do not understand in the slightest. Why couldn't those? My Seiko 5 has has exactly the same complications as this watch, but it's all controlled through the crown itself. So I don't understand why they couldn't have done these functions on the crown. My only thought is maybe they want to keep exactly the same case and design for the whole range. So actually they just used these pushers to have a function. When it comes to creating the chronograph version, they're not going to have to change anything about the case. It's just a matter of changing the movement inside. You have the two pushers there. If they really needed to separate those functions from the crown, the day and date function from the crown, then they probably should have done tiny little pin pushers as opposed to full-on pushers. Maybe it's me. I am clumsy with my watches, which is why I guess I gravitate to newer sports watches. But I knock things. And it would be really annoying if I kept knocking the date function, for example, because you have to keep clicking through. I'm sure it's a satisfying click, but if you do that every week, then it must be quite annoying having to constantly set that. That being said, when I have a watch with a date function, my Submariner, for example, is saying it's the 15th. What is the date? The date's the 26th. So this is far out, and it would be nice to have a little pusher to do that. From a user perspective, I guess it does have a useful function. If you're going to buy a watch of this level, it's not going to be your only watch. You're going to have a whole collection. So I guess it will run out of power, and you will need to set the date. Having a nice pusher to go through that function from a user perspective must be quite enjoyable, but from the perspective of being a sports watch, I don't see that as a useful function in the slightest. Now, if we move into the bracelets, this is where things go completely wrong for this watch. I feel it goes completely wrong for the watch. The lugs are really very wide. I think they're around 22 millimeters wide, the gap between the lugs. You then have the bracelet, which usually a bracelet would fit between the lugs, and this isn't an integrated bracelet. So you can completely remove the bracelet and add a leather strap, which I think would fix a lot of the issues here, although you still have a very wide lug width, so you're going to have a hefty leather strap on this thing. I think the proportion between the case and the strap or bracelet is just off, and for me, I think that's where this thing's been executed incorrectly. The bracelet has become the dominant section of this watch. It takes away from the case, it takes away from the dial, because there's so much metal going on with the bracelet. If you see how wide the lugs are, and then you look at how the end links of the bracelet actually meet the edges of the lug, whereas normally a bracelet would fit between the lugs. So this bracelet really is a chunk of metal. Again, this might be something that in person it actually works because it's an enjoyable heft of a bracelet as opposed to the aesthetics of it. So I'm sure this is something that might change if I ever get to experience this watch. But visually, it looks quite odd. The rendered photographs that we have online that we can look at, the bracelet looks very tight and everything looks nicely engineered, so it's all working closely together. But if we look at this photograph from Fratello watches, you can quite clearly see that the bracelet doesn't quite fit as neatly as it should. And for a watch of this level, that's quite disappointing. I really, really like how they finished the bracelet with the brushed top, and then all the edges of each individual link is chamfered and highly polished. From the reviews that I've found, there seems to be a lot of hate for this buckle. I actually love this buckle. I think it's a very, very cool touch. There isn't anything overly elegant about the buckle, and that kind of adds to the tool watch vibe of this piece. I also really like how they executed the logo on this buckle. A Lange Sohne is a cool name. They've made it look brilliant with the typography that they use, but also the way that they've popped it in there, it looks like the rear end of a bullet case, which I don't know why, but I just think that's quite cool. This is actually a button to operate the bracelet extension. So there's 7 millimeters of extension within the clasp. I don't understand the hate for this clasp, but I think it is really very, very cool. If you flip it over, you're going to see the gorgeous movement inside through the display case back. And props to Lange for creating a watch that has 120 meter water resistance in a luxury sports watch that's not ever going to be used for sports. But kind of props to them for actually creating something that can go down to that depth, and with the display case back. So I think that's quite cool. To make the movement a bit more robust, they've sped it up to 4 Hertz, and they've added a full balance bridge as opposed to just a balance cock, which is what usually happens within a dress watch. So again, props to them to actually creating a watch that can withstand a bit of messing about, because it is quite a severe departure from their traditional offering of watches and what they would expect their normal watches to go through. If I had the money and the opportunity to buy this watch, I wouldn't buy it over a Royal Oak or over a Nautilus or even over an Overseas. I prefer the other 3 to this version. Guys, drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think of this piece. It does seem to be another watch that has split the community. I'm going to be in London next week, and there's a Lange boutique on Bond Street. I know they're not going to have one, but I'm at least going to try and swing by and see if I can just see this piece. Although I do think they've missed the mark on this one, it is an amazing start from Lange. So it's going to be really cool to see what else they come up with. A video that you should check out is from Watch Advisor. He sits down with the head of product design from A Lange Sohne, and they actually have the real watch with them there. I'll put a link in the description below. Go check out our straps over at barkandjack.shop. Check out our website at barkandjack.com. And if you're on Instagram, give me a follow at barkandjack. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.